Everybody, my name is Aaron Gunnarsson with Pass House, Massachusetts. Really excited to be able to put on this lunch and learn today on Windows for Pass House buildings. This session is being sponsored through the Mass Save Pass House training program. For those who are unfamiliar, Mass Save has been incentivizing Pass House trainings for the last 3 years now. We're really excited to see it continue in their next sort of 3-year training cycle. So we're going to have more opportunities to lunch and learns and workshops like this. Mass Save is also incentivizing certification training. So if you're interested in going through the Pass House Builders program or Pass House Trade Persons program, they are reimbursing 50% of the costs of those trainings. I see some names on here of folks who have gone through those. So congratulations on going through those courses. For folks who are looking at doing it in the future, you can still get those 50% rebates here throughout the next year. So I want to thank Mass Save for those incentives, and I want to welcome everybody to today's session. This is being recorded, so we'll share this later on our video library, so you can either refer this to friends who didn't get a chance to attend it today, or you can rewatch it yourselves to kind of refresh some stuff. As we go through the course today, feel free to use the chat room to ask questions and to kind of discuss the topics. There's also a raise hand feature on this Zoom webinar. We'll probably get to most of the live questions at the end of the session, so you can actually chip in and use that raise hand feature. So I would say kind of during the session, try to use the chat room to ask most of your questions there. But I'm going to turn things over here to our feature presenter, Tom Buckley, who you see on your screen right now. Those who have been to some of our Pass House Massachusetts meetings in the past, certainly the ones in person that we used to do back at the BSA, you recognize Tom. He's been a fixture there. He's been involved in a lot of our sessions. So it's really great to have him presenting today and talking about a topic that he's been working on for a long time. So Tom, I'm going to turn it over to you. Take it away. I'm going to put myself on mute, and thank you guys for being here. Take it away, Tom.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us in our discussion about Windows and reaching passive house standards. My name is Tom Buckley. I'm here with Grand Banks Building Products, and on the beautiful Annisquam River up in Gloucester. It's kind of I wish I could show you out the window. It's kind of a gentle snow coming down, and ospreys and beautiful wildlife going by the window. So great setting. You can also find us down in Waltham at our new facility on Route 20. We have a complete showroom there, and I hang my hat down in Milton, Mass, and I kind of cover the whole New England area. So you can find me from Cape Cod all the way up to Maine. So again, thank you for all the folks at Pass House, Massachusetts for making this possible. There's been so much advocacy in this movement for the last number of years, and we are certainly the benefactors of all that hard work. So I'd just like to welcome anyone that's new to the passive house building concept. I'm going to try and demystify this whole window presentation by keeping it very simple. We could talk about windows for hours, days. There are so many ins and outs, but I would like this to be a primer to lead to further conversation and education about windows in the passive house community. You know, there are some people out here that are new, some old. Great to see some familiar faces. You know, if there was a goal today for me in this presentation, it's about education about the windows, but also opening up the channels of communication for learning from each other, from our experience in passive house. I'm fortunate to be out in the field a lot, rubbing elbows with some really great people, consultants, designers, builders, installers. I think one of the weak links in our whole program is that communication from the field to the office and back. You know, I don't think we can rest on our laurels. We're always trying to improve, get better. It's a learning process for all of us, but sometimes I think we forget that chain of communication. So let this be a start. I hope that we can go further down, you know, in education. But today I'd like to keep this pretty simple. Any, you know, successful construction project, we work in teams. You know, there are individual efforts, but we all work in teams, and we are the sum total of what we bring to our team. So I work with a team here at Grand Banks, and I'm just going to do a quick introduction. I could not do my job without them. We could not, you know, be servicing you folks as we do without this team. So I'd just like to quickly, Sam O'Neill, our Chief of Operations here at Grand Banks Building Products. And then we're going to share the screen. Nate Campbell, who is the guy in our operation, has probably been doing this longer than most guys in the Northeast. He knows European windows inside and out. He's been importing them. He has intimate relationships with folks in Europe. He's done residential stuff. He's done commercial stuff. He wears so many hats. Pretty much everything that we do here at Grand Banks with windows funnels through Nate Campbell. So I've learned a tremendous amount from Nate. He's always doing research and bringing us in the right direction. So, there's no secret that, we import a lot of our windows. Our European windows come from Germany, Poland, Slovakia, primarily from Poland these days. We find their craftsmanship, their workmanship, their attention to detail is second to none, And what's crucial to that is not picking up the phone and just calling people. We have direct feet on the ground, a crucial link to this whole operation. And the key component to this is our gal Magda Zedwana, and she is in Poland. Magda, just introduce yourself.
Yeah, the unmute button. Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you. Thank you, Passive House Massachusetts, for having us here today. My name is Magdalena Zadvorna, as Tom just said. I am with Grand Banks. It's my third year at Grand Banks. I'm originally from Poland, and this is where I live and work. My job at Grand Banks is the contact between our salespeople and the fabricators here located in Europe, and the logistics parts, as long as our products are here in Europe. I take care of the orders and the contacts with the fabricator. Happy to be here, and you're welcome to ask questions after the presentation of Tom and Nate.
Thank you both so much. In a nutshell, in our Passive House community and the building concept, we're trying to achieve high performance building envelopes through the use of advanced building practices and products. Okay, so the overall picture, there's really four major components. We're talking about windows and doors. We're talking about how we insulate the building. We're talking about the envelope with moisture barriers and air barriers, and then the whole mechanical system. So our job is talking about windows and doors. I've been fortunate. Aaron talked about learning classes, seminars. I have learned so much, in the last couple of years. Kudos to the guys at Studio for High Performance Design, certification, Mass Save. There's a number that always sticks out in my mind. I've been reading this for years. It went from 30 billion, 50 billion, $60 billion a year in lost energy costs due to inefficient fenestration in North America. 60 billion. So for many of us, we translate that into carbon footprint. Just a huge loss. Fossil fuels, the transportation of these products, taking them out, putting them into the landfill. It's just, we need products that are long lasting, they're durable, they're serviceable, they're thermally efficient. They bring us that sense of comfort that we're all looking for. They're sustainable and affordable. So those are our goals in bringing you, windows from Europe. The number one thing we look for, thermal performance. I've been in the window business. I've been a carpenter contractor for pretty much all my life. A lot of the windows were designed in North America and the United States for aesthetic reasons. There's nothing like that beautiful 6/6 double hung from Roscoe, windows. They're beautiful, they're quintessential New England. But as far as thermal performance, we're looking at a totally different animal. We're looking at R values of 8+. We're looking at U values of 0.12 and better. We're looking at a sense of comfort. You know, we're all used to walking by the glass, the doors in our house and having cold spots. We try to eliminate that with these triple glazed style tilt and turn windows. We're looking at no drafts. We're looking at just a warmth that settles over us, you know, and even when in the summertime, when we try to ventilate these windows, these are, you know, a tilt and turn window, and the window tilts in, and there's a subtle updraft that, you know, comes from the exterior, and that cool air comes up. It diffuses the warm air in the ceiling, and there's nothing like that cloak that settles over us. You know, it gives us that sense of comfort. One of the other great benefits of the windows are reduction of sound emissivity, and you know, we live in an urban sprawl these days, noise bombarding us all the time, planes, cars, leaf blowers, you know, it's always coming at us, and we want to be comfortable. You know, these windows, I've experienced it myself, you know, they can be a jet plane flying at 1,500 feet above your house, and you're not going to hear it. So totally different experience. You know, we talked about sustainability. These windows are serviceable. The Europeans believe in longevity and being able to, you know, service the windows so they last 30, 40, 50 years or more. They have a history of these windows lasting a long time. Now, longevity is you know, we talk about the maintenance, which we'll get into later. Security, you know, on these windows. The Europeans are using this multi-point locking system, the full perimeter of these windows. You know, when you turn that handle, that whole window is locking at multiple points around it. We've experienced, some of that in our doors here, you know, US produced, but there's nothing like that sense of closing that window. And aesthetics, I don't know. I mean, there's some beautifully designed modern contemporary homes using these, you know, these windows, but we also see residences and institutional buildings that are done in you know, historic style. You know, there are farmhouses, little barns being done in the Concord, Lincoln area. We have some schools up here in Beverly. So the aesthetics, if you're designing them, you know how beautiful they can be. And last but not least, affordability. You know, we go to Europe because they've been doing it a long time. You know, the Europeans have this down, and they offer us great value in the products that we import, whether it's UPVC, wood, or aluminum. So the price points are there. People seem to be intimidated by, you know, how beautiful and efficient the windows are, and they think that they're going to cost a fortune. I can tell you that let us price out a job. You'll be surprised. You know, top performing UPVC window will go right up against any high performance window made over here in the States, and probably be 75% of the cost. So, European windows, what makes them so different? I would have to say the three major points are their frame thicknesses. The frames are up to 3.5 inches, 82, 85, 90 millimeters wide. They're thermally broken with chambers, you know, to reduce thermal, to increase thermal performance. You know, we increase in thermal barriers. They're utilizing triple glazing, three layers of high performance glass. It can be tuned with films. The quality of glass in Europe, I was fortunate enough to tour one of the major window manufacturers over there, Saint-Gobain Glass. Their glass is just beautiful. And the attention to detail, the workmanship, the government regulations that go into it just make a superior glass, in my opinion. The crucial part of this triple glazing is this non-conductive spacer bar. They do not allow the use of aluminum spacer bars in Europe. It's just a conductor of energy loss. They just don't use it over there, you know. The other major point is, you know, these gaskets, these full perimeter gaskets, which go around, you know, between the sash and the frame itself. Multiple points of gasket, not unlike your refrigerator door when you're closing the door. It's tight. It's preventing water infiltration, air infiltration from the outside and the inside. You know, I talked a little bit about government regulation. There are standards set in Europe for the manufacturing of all windows and doors, and whether it's the frame components, the sash components, the glass itself. I have witnessed at Saint-Gobain, how they inject the argon gas there. And they have government officials that randomly will check one of these glass panels to make sure that the argon gas is completely filled. And they have random checks for the lifespan of the window up to 10 years. If those windows do not meet 80% or higher in the argon gas, they have to be replaced. So they're very, very stringent in their attention to details and making sure there's no waste of energy. One of the things that's near and dear to me is about the European products, especially the UPVC, is the recycling of materials. This UPVC is different from what we're calling PVC in the United States. It's free of chemicals. This stuff can be, these windows are made from recycled PVC pellets and powders. These windows, the PVC itself can be recycled up to 7 times. 7 times. So, there's a responsibility of the end user. I know the aluminum in the windows can be recycled. The glass can be taken out, ground up, and used for different purposes. So environmentally friendly. And, that's a goal that I think I would love to see here in the United States down the road is recycling. We put so much stuff into our landfill from construction sites, and our end goal here is reduction of carbon footprint. So, the way they manufacture the windows in Europe, nothing's made out of a catalog. Everything is made to order, and you tell us the dimensions you have and we make them. You're often paying for frame size versus glass size. The UPVC that they use over there is an unplasticized polyvinyl chloride with no phthalates in it. These phthalates are known cancer-causing agents. They're very, very adamant about these chemicals partially due to recycling. They're always looking at people's health. You also see that in stringent regulations and the low-voc paints that they use. We still have over the whole RAL color charts available to us, but in much safer, environmentally friendly paint products. Because of the long-lasting, the shelf life of these products, there have been windows, these PVC windows used well over 40, 45, approaching 50 years in Europe. I recently did a project here in Boston, took out Trocal windows installed in 1988. They were serviceable. The contractor and the homeowners decided they wanted new windows, but those windows were completely functional with just a little bit of tuning. The question we hear all the time is cost. What are these European windows going to cost? And UPVC is our lowest priced option. You can probably figure between $20 to $50 a square foot is our sell price, which compared to many of our domestic high-end windows is very favorable. And the options that are available with the PVC windows, they're able to put these aluminum cladding on top of them for longevity, strength, durability. One of the recent advents has been this foil finish, and the foil finish has allowed us to simulate wood design, give us, again, all kinds of colors, but also maintaining that favorable price point. We tend to, here at Grand Banks, we carry the Schuko line, which is world-renowned. Their quality is second to none. Many of you are familiar with them. And our UPVC line is a Polish produced window called Vector. On this slide, you'll see, that the life cycle of these UPVC products, what can be done with them, the process that they use. Again, I would love to see this program. I think the more we use these windows in the States, eventually we'll be able to have recycling programs like this, to reduce our carbon footprint. So next we have aluminum windows, and Schuco is rolling around. We have companies Rainier's, Alaprof, Gratizo making aluminum windows for us. And again, we have the windows made to our specifications. Nate has been in this game a long time. He's seen a lot of different field conditions. He knows what to specify, from each manufacturer. We relay that, that concern to Magda, and she makes sure that the factory does it right. Both crucial components and, getting the right product, you guys. The aluminum, again, multi-chambered, thermally broken. You can see how none of the aluminum is continuous. It's broken up by thermal barriers, either chambers or composite materials. We can use different insulation functions to get extra insulation qualities from the window. We can reinforce it with steel for larger frames, increase wind loads. So again, it's a great option. Many people will turn to this for their storefronts. If budget is an issue, a lot of institutional projects are utilizing all aluminum, but the benefits, the thermal efficiency from these is just incredible. And the frame sizes that we can make, we've seen windows 16 feet wide, 8 feet high. The doors that are made, they're like a Rolex watch. They slide, they're high performance. And last is the wood window. I guess I as a woodworker all my life, I have a penchant for the wood window. There are some folks out there today that have these windows in their house. They're made as furniture grade. A lot of pride is put into them. The wood that is used is generally sustainably harvested, from trees that were 30 years, old, locally sourced in Europe. A great option over there they use is larch and European spruce, different from the spruce that we have here, much more stable. But the way that they make these frames in the sashes, it's multi-laminated, cross-laminated with their grain. And oftentimes they'll even take that wood and they'll put insulation between the layers with sustainable materials like cork. The window can be beautifully finished. With the advent of CLT building these days and natural surfaces being shown, it's a great, great complement to those building products. The wood does not have to stand alone to the weather. The Europeans have they like to call it a rain screen system. We call it aluminum cladding. It's done a little differently than how they do it over there. I think you can see on the slide that there's a space, a thermal barrier between the aluminum. It's also to reduce any condensation between that aluminum and the wood itself. So the longevity, of the wood is, we're expecting these windows, they should be lasting 50 to 100 years. There's a terminology that, these 100-year projects that we're looking at. We recently did a project, Consigli Construction over in Chelsea with almost 300 of these windows for a veteran's home. Beautiful, beautiful project. And these were the windows of choice. So cost. Okay, so probably as important, if not more important than any of the products that we have made. There's that old adage about the $1,000 window and the $10 hole, and you end up with a $10 window. And the installation is crucial to how these windows perform. My advice to anybody that's new out there, make sure that your install crew is well trained. This is not, for a journeyman carpenter, apprentice carpenter to just go out and throw them in. They should be trained, but ideally through your manufacturer supplier. Someone that has been trained themselves, someone who knows how to follow the sequential steps, someone knows how to read the approved shop drawings, and they need to be adhered to. There's a lot of dress rehearsal that's done through these shop drawings, and they need to be followed. So, the guy that probably knows more about window installation than anybody that I've met is Nate Campbell. So I'd like to have Nate talk a little bit about what he has seen out there and what he's can advise.
Thanks, Tom. Good job. This is a chance for you to catch your breath. Thank you for that. And thank you to Passive House Mass for this opportunity and setting this up for us today. So to jump right into talking about installation, and Sam, if you can go to the slide before that real quickly. We're going to start there. But I'm going to keep things pretty straightforward in my discussion, my quick and brief discussion. There are, as Tom alluded to earlier, there are so many different ways to skin the cat, as they say, and to install windows. And there's so many different ways to design a passive house, for that matter. But we want to keep things simple and talk about the basic premises today to stay on point. Obviously, as Tom said, if there's any questions, we can talk about that at the end as well. And outside of this presentation, we'd love to talk to you about install. To start right off and looking at this slide here, you're seeing a couple of pictures of basically before you're putting a unit in the opening. You want to properly flash and seal the rough opening. That's a pretty standard practice today that we're seeing, and that's usually pre-specified, as far as the material. But you want to make sure you're using the right tape and flashing for that rough opening. But to jump right to putting the unit in, when designing and detailing the installation of a window, the center of the wall has been tested and proven to be the best performing location for window installation. So Sam, we want to go to that next slide, which is where we're going to talk mostly. Yeah, thank you. So the center of the wall has been tested and proven to be the best performing location for window installation in general. As is the premise with Passive House, you want to keep your insulated layer of the entire envelope in a line. You want to keep that connected. You don't want to have areas where you're insulated to the interior at one point and exterior at another. So the general premise has always been, and a good starting point is the center of the wall. So that's where we start with. The design, the discussion can lead to other things. Insulation layers and windows can be more towards the exterior, more towards the interior. But a good starting point as a general practice is to start at the center of the wall. Mainly we want to do that because the insulation layers are typically at the center, but that's not always the case, as I just said. An added benefit, from the window industry that we've experienced is to have that the window set back from the exterior of the facade. From the window industry, we love the idea of that window and its lifespan not being exposed to sheeting water for its entire lifespan. So if we're able to get that window in the center of the wall or set back from the exterior, that's an added benefit for the longevity of the product, just for the gaskets and just overall longevity. So that's another added benefit. This is also possible, or I should say we're able to put the window anywhere in the wall because we don't use nailing flanges. Domestically, we've become reliant on these nailing flanges that just allow for a quick set in the whole opening. And they are helpful in some cases, but they're not the primary permanent solution for that install. And so not having nailing flanges allows us more control on where to put that window in that rough opening. So that's a standard for us. And then we use other components to attach that, as I'll discuss. At this point, you're basically ready to put that unit into your opening. An added note and an added feature for a European product, European tilt turn windows, if it's an operable window, of course, is you're able to remove the sash from the frame. That's not always the case. There may be weather conditions, there may be situations in which the sash must stay in the frame, but it is an added feature and an option that if you can take that very heavy triple glazed sash out of that frame it just allows for better maneuverability of the frame to set that in that rough opening, and makes that the installer's life a little bit easier. So that's a great option if it's available, and we can easily explain and assist, and Magda can always help us if we ever have questions about how to quickly get that sash out. But at this point, you're ready to put your frame in your opening. And once you do that, you're shimming, and those shims are typically done just basically at your corners. When I started installing windows years ago, you were putting shims all the way around the unit, and you were, every 12 inches or whatever the case may be. And with these products, the window is really designed, and the glazing is designed that you're really just shimming at the corners, and any mullion points and things like that. But so as you're seeing in this image here, that shim space is between your, the bottom of the unit and the rough opening, and you're doing that at the corners. At this point, you're ready to basically rigidly attach your frame to the building. And this is done in typically one of two ways. And we usually use a installation clip. That is not shown in this image here, but the clip is typically attached to the perimeter of the frame, every 12 to 18 inches typically. And then once that's attached to the window and the window is set into the rough opening, those clips then are typically to the interior. They can be to the exterior, depending on the design of the building. But once those shims are into the interior, that's how you typically would attach it and rigidly attach that to the building. We can use turbo screws, and we can really tweak, how those clips are attached, because sometimes the size of the window, sometimes the wind load, there's many things to discuss and look at when you're designing, the install and the rigid attachment of the window. So the clips become important, the screws that you use and things like that. And then at this point, you've done your shimming, and at this point you would want to get ready to I suppose if you had removed your sash, this would be the time that you would put your sash back in after that frame is rigidly attached. But at this point, this is when you would start sealing up your window. The typical basic methods or sequence, I should say, of sealing is to tape the exterior and in this case, we're showing, a vapor permeable to the exterior on the right side of this image, but you're taping to the exterior. And then at that point is when you would want to start insulating, your shim cavity. It says shim space here. It's really important to take your time and put that insulation in properly. If you're using a foam insulation, sometimes they call it lifts or different layers. You want to make sure you look at the specifications of the foam that you're using and make sure it's put in properly, because you don't want to have any voids. You really want to make sure that shim space is sealed and insulated well to continue your thermal performance, and connecting that thermal performance from the window to the building. Once that cavity is filled and everything is insulated properly, and you've maybe put your foam in different layers, that's when you would tape the interior. I know when I talk to people sometimes about basic window installs, and I mentioned taping inside and outside, they're kind of surprised that you're using 2 layers of tape. We've talked to people in Passive House that have some experience. It's not even a question. So you're always using 2 layers of tape. It really helps control, the biggest thing in Passive House is air tightness, but it also obviously is your water management as well. But it really makes for a nice airtight seal and so on. And that's, those are kind of the basics of a window install. Installation accessories, this is just kind of a brief overview of what we just talked about, and some accessories that you're going to need. Those shims that we're using, to set the window, it's pretty common to see plastic out there, or something that's not wood, basically. Wood just, over the lifespan and the fact that we're trying to get, decades out of these Windows products and these installations, it's just nice to use a non-wood product. Tapes, utilizing tapes on exterior and interior surfaces prevent any air infiltration, allow management of moisture and vapor permeability to the exterior. Those tapes are unique and they do work as a system, those interior and exterior tapes, where your interior is where it's an airtight, it's a vapor tight layer to not allow any of the vapors that happen within that wall cavity system to escape to the interior. And then your exterior layer does allow those vapors to permeate through the seasons to the exterior. So those tapes are crucial. They do act as a system. You want to make sure you're using the right product there. And we can definitely help you either supply or find the right supply of those tapes. Insulation, we talked about that. I mentioned foam. One of the exciting things that we're talking about with insulation, whether it's on walls or in between the shim cavities, is getting away from foam. Right now, it's what's readily available in our market, but as we're quickly in our lifetime talking about getting away from fossil fuels and many other products, using something that's maybe more wood-based. So we'll hopefully see more of that in the future. But insulation of that cavity is important, no matter what insulation you're using, is to take the time and make sure that's insulated well before applying your tapes. The clips that we use, they are supplied with the product. We try to keep some on hand here at Grand Banks for people that might need some more, some extras. For the aluminum and the PVC products, typically, and you can see in the image on the bottom, there is a flange on that allows it to click into the side of the frame, so it's rigidly attached. That's pretty nice on those products. With the wood products on the image above, you're seeing you might have to hammer in, and it adheres to the wood frame. Might have to put a screw in there to attach that clip to the window. So different methods on the clips, and again, we'll specify those clips and make sure that they're placed properly based on on your design. And then lastly, jumping to the last thing for a product that we use is the aluminum sills. The aluminum sills do come as it's a full package. It's color matched, makes the sill look like part of the window. And they do come with different end caps, vertical or horizontal, you're seeing here. And these are put on after that window is completely sealed to the building. So you've done all your taping, insulating everything, window secure, it's watertight. Then you can attach these sills to the bottom of your window. And we can walk through all of these steps with you for basically every project that you may, that you hopefully do through Grand Banks. So I probably went over a little bit. If anybody has any questions, we'll definitely talk more about installation. I'm going to hand it back over to Tom at this point, kind of wrap things up on the maintenance side of things. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much. That was great. Again, just, this is a primer and installation. Every field condition varies. There's an intimidation factor. If you're new to this, you're thinking, oh my God, it's going to take me 4 hours to put in a window. Let us educate you. Let's diminish the learning curve. Let's learn from other people that have gone before us and done other projects. Let's get you guys up to snuff and putting these windows in efficiently and effectively. So, all right. So we've got these beautiful windows installed in our building, and we want them to last a long time. We want that payback on our investment. So another crucial component is this whole process is maintenance of the windows. And so many times we've been out on construction sites, we've all experienced this, and we see the windows covered with drywall dust. We see that the plaster on them. We see the guys stepping through some of these larger tilt and turn windows with mud on their boots and leaving the mud on the sills. The mechanisms covered with debris. The aluminum foils or cladding dented, through negligence. We need to protect the windows. We need to keep them clean. These are highly functional units. So we keep them clean. We got them in the field, and we need to maintain them. Gaskets do not last forever. They need to be cleaned. They need to be lubricated. Most manufacturers will suggest it's done on an annual basis. The glass needs to be kept clean. You know, we want to bring the outdoor experience in, and we want to, you know, be comfortable at the same time. The end users, the education of the end users, you know, whether it's the facilities manager in your building, it's the homeowner themselves, the tenants that are in the building, they need to understand the whole passive house envelope concept. You know, when to keep the windows closed. We're spending a ton of money, or as little money as we can, to condition this air, whether we're heating it or we're cooling it. We don't want, you know, 400 units in the building with their windows open in the middle of February. We need to tell people why, you know, make them feel part of. If there are people that are in charge of maintaining these in a commercial building or whoever it happens to be, there needs to be education about how to maintain them, how to operate them. You know, this tilt and turn mechanism is not familiar to all people. We like to go out and show people how these are used, so they're not forcing them. They should be as smooth as silk, you know, to get the window to tilt in, to get the window to swing in. You know, the swing-in option, swinging in, allows us to maintain gaskets, seals, hardware if need be. We can tweak the hinges if there's settling in the building or in the frame itself. So it needs to be adhered to, you know, for longevity and performance of the window. I highly suggest that there's a final walkthrough through not only the suppliers of the windows, hopefully the architect or the consultant, the installer and the builder and the investor or the owner. We want complete satisfaction. You know, we want these to perform to their full capacity. Develop a relationship with your supplier, you know, and their service department. Do they have a service department? You know, it's crucial. You know, we hear the term all the time, service. But what is service in our business? You know, it's about walking the talk. It's about doing what needs to be done to make the job successful. You know, Grand Banks has been doing this for over 30 years, supplying windows and educating people to make better decisions in new building products. You know, it's why they have gotten involved with European tilt and turn windows. So in closing, I want to thank everybody for taking the time today. It's not our typical lunch and learn, which I love to do. Nothing like good food with a bunch of enthusiastic folks. I'd just like to say that, you know, the sum of all our efforts in designing and building these windows, we add up all the components, you know, and it brings together and makes it successful. The same concept in our building. But I also like to think of that analogy in our whole passive house community. You know, we are the sum of all our parts. You know, you might have experience in one arena and I have experience in another, but we need to come together and communicate that, you know, to you know, raise the dial in the whole passive house community and make this successful. So thank you again. Reach out to us if we can be of any help, and going to open this up to some questions and hopefully some answers.
Thank you so much, Tom and Nate and Magda. That was a great presentation. We definitely have some questions here in the chat room, which we can get to. And also, folks, this is an opportunity if you want to use the raise hand feature, you can go ahead and do that, and we can get you to ask your questions that way as well. Tom, I'm not sure if you can see the chat room on your end, but if you can, I'll read through a few of them. A lot of them kind of about some of the window details you were going over here. So just here's a question on the sills that you were showing. Are those generally supplied by the windows manufacturer? And if not, how are you speccing those to, you know, to match with the window?
So Tom, I'll take these answers. You can chime in if you want. Typically, yeah, and always the sills are included with the window order. There are some designs, and again, this is why every passive house and every project, you know, you talk about the use of the sills. But 99% of the time we do supply them. They're for the windows, and they do come color matched, and they do come with a product. Magda's really good about making sure all the parts and pieces are included. We include the screws, and they do attach to what's called the base profile. Sam, if you can go back to the previous slide above this one, or a couple that has the cross section, you can see where that has the, it has more of the, yeah, you'll see the sill and you see the screws. That's attached to what's called a base profile. That base profile is included with the frame of the window. It is included in the overall frame size. That base profile typically is thermally broken. It is made of PVC usually. If it were made of aluminum, it would have a thermal break in it. So it is a window component just as much as the frame is. So hopefully that answers your question on the sill.
Great, thanks, Dave. And you can actually keep it right here on this slide. We have a couple other questions, I think, about the same image here. So I'll ask two of them here. You can answer both of them. So the first is, does that the base profile that you're showing have the same thermal resistance as the main frame of the window? And the second is, does the shim here, does the insulation in that reduce the heat conduction through the base profile? Is the shim, reducing thermal heat transfer at all?
First question, the base profile, again, with those being PVC, typically they are thermally resistant, just as much as a like in this image, you're seeing a PVC base profile, but that's an aluminum window. So the aluminum window typically is, you can see where it's got an aluminum layer to the interior and the exterior, and then it's got a thermal break in between. So I think Tom's actually showing some of that as well. So yeah, that base profile, I would say, is thermally resistant as much as the window frame. And then does insulation in the shim space reduce the heat conduction through the base profile and the frame to either side? That's a good question. I would say probably not. Reduce the heat conduction through the base profile. No, I think that the insulation in the shim cavity is only going to help the performance of both the base profile and the overall performance of the installation.
Thanks, Nate. And the question, I think, still getting, you can use the same image for, just asking about the air tightness between the sill extension and the sill portion of the frame and how you're ensuring that. And then there's a question right below that about sort of tape that you're using, which might be related because it ensures some air tightness in the insulation. So is there preferred tape for the windows, and how are you ensuring that this doesn't have enough wrinkles in it that affect the performance of the air tightness?
The answer is, and I think it's shown in this image, is that you're putting your tape on and you're sealing the base profile over the shim space onto the building. So that is your air and water tight seal. And then the sill is put on. I mean, the sill, and the purpose of the sill is both for looks, it's to finish it, but also it's to guarantee that the water, when you're putting the window into, as we talked about, the center of the wall or deeper into the RO, it's an assurance that the bulk water is getting away from the window, getting to the exterior of the facade. So, and an important point is that we do have different sizes of those sills. I mean, I think they go up to 12 or 14 inches deep, but the point is everything's air and water tight before the sill gets put on. Sill gets attached. That's meant for your bulk water, and then you're putting your trim, around the rough opening and the window opening, door opening, that would go over that sill component. As far as tape manufacturers, we tend to use Siga, but definitely would want you to educate yourselves on what you feel is the best tapes. We also definitely have access to other tapes from Europe. We can include with the package. The nice thing about Siga, we just know some of the local representatives and whatnot. We know we can get the product quickly. I have worked with a product. That's the one I just happen to be personally most experienced with. Segueing into the question about wrinkles, that's where I really lean on the Siga reps and tape reps in general. But the Siga guys know how to show people how to install the tape. Putting that tape on is crucial. when you're putting it on a straight run, whether it's which top side or bottom, that's kind of the easy part when it's a straight run, from the window to the rough opening. But as soon as you get to your corners, it's always the hard part. And yeah, I've done it, and I've seen it done where you're trying to cut this, you're trying to fold that, and then at the end of the day, you're just stuffing it in a corner, hoping that it works. Well, that's not always the right thing to do. And so the tape guys really know how to make sure that you can apply that tape, and not have those wrinkles. I think they also sell, or include little plastic sort of almost scrapers to slide across the tape to make sure you can really smooth out your wrinkles and have a good adhesion of your tape over both the window and the rough opening in the building.
Thanks, Nate. I think that was a very good answer. I'm going to shift here to a question more about kind of the supply chain. Wondering, there's actually a couple of questions about the lead time for ordering windows from shop drawings, and then how, and then to the point where you actually get the windows on site. And related to that, are you currently seeing any supply chain issues? Or do you anticipate, how do you see this next year looking in terms of supply chain issues?
Yeah, definitely. Typically in a typical time, we would see an 8-week manufacturing with in a perfect world, 3-week, but typically 4-week shipping process. At this point, I'd probably have Magda, I'll let you weigh into what you're seeing on your side, from as far as manufacturing that we've seen in the past few months.
Yeah, I'll say it moved from this 8-10 weeks to 10-12, so it's not that much of a difference. But of course, the sea logistics is becoming a
I don't know if we lost Magda. I'll finish if everyone can hear me. She's seeing some issues on sea logistics, like the container we just had. It was scheduled for, again, the standard 3 to 4 weeks, and it took 6 to 8 weeks to get that product here. And those are things that are completely out of our control. And they were updating us on a weekly basis. Oh, it's going to be another week. It's stuck in this port. Those are things we typically don't see. My recommendation to people, whenever I've tried to talk them into high performance European windows, no matter who your supplier is, I used to always say, on the whole, typically, if a supplier is telling you it's going to be 8 to 10 weeks, stuck at the port, that's usually not entirely true. Usually, in usual times, it's 4 weeks is about appropriate, maybe 5 on the long side. But in these cases right now, especially with the holidays, we saw 7 and 8 weeks for lead time.
And crucial communication, and well planned out projects. We have as much consistency coming from Europe to United States as we do from our domestic manufacturers coming across country. So supply chain issues, they're keeping up with it. There's so many fabricators, and one of our key ingredients, of course, is having Magda over there, and she has control. She makes things happen for us that other suppliers, I think, sometimes are envious of, and she knows which shippers to use and who can expedite things when possible. So, but again, honest communication about lead times.
Yeah, that's definitely crucial. I mean, and again, in a normal time, I've been importing for almost 10 or 12 years now, and you could almost guarantee a 12-week. You're going to see your windows in 12 weeks, and right now we are seeing the manufacturing go from 8 weeks up to 10 or 12, and then shipping going up. So we're in some crazy times right now, but we should be able to forecast something close. Aaron, I'm sure you're still there, but I'm seeing a couple other questions that I could jump into. I saw one that said, can you still reach passive certification rating with sliders and double hungs? I think that's an important question for the masses. Probably most passive house people would easily know the answer, but typically anything that's sliding within a sash is just by its engineering is difficult to seal. So if it's a sliding up and down sash or side to side, those are more difficult to seal versus the tilt turn window, or a casement window, but a tilt turn that has locking points on all four sides, has more gasketing. It allows you to really seal that sash and frame together. So sliding windows are, I would say, would be very difficult, if not impossible, to certify to a passive house level, a sliding sash window. That's why people are looking at tilt turns.
And I just like to add one point to that. I've seen guys try it. I've seen them accomplish it by making 18-inch thick walls. It can be done, but one of the reasons that people are turning to European triple glazed windows, it just makes it a lot easier. I remember guys searching back in the 80s, for a window that they could make their timber frame much more energy efficient. And the European tilt and turn windows just makes it a lot easier to accomplish the passive house standards.
Thanks. I just want to jump in and echo those comments. I have seen passive house, certified projects with double hung windows. So it's definitely possible, but to echo the statements you guys are making, it's more challenging.
Thank you.
Those things are true. It's definitely more challenging, but I've definitely seen it happen. And for those out there wondering if you're working on, say, historic retrofits, for example, where you want windows to match, that is also possible. I've seen that happen where folks can get double hung windows. They can get them in historic projects and get them to be certified as a passive house project. But as these folks are highlighting, it introduces more challenges into the project, but it's possible, just more challenging to do.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. I appreciate that. It's good to know. It was just, I think people gravitate towards the highest performing product that's available. But to your point that if the double hung's required for design and other reasons, then it's good to know it can be achieved. I saw on here, what do you recommend for window testing during construction? It's always an assumption people are in the passive house world, but talking about basics, blower door tests. I don't know if I assume people have heard of that, but it's a mechanism that you're putting into a door and a door frame, and it's got a fan on it, and it's got a computer attached to it or a digital reader, and it just allows you to control and test the building, but it also allows you to check your windows and really physically feel around your windows and doors to make sure you don't have any air leaks. So that's just a really good method. As far as water tightness, there are some commercial projects that require window testing to finalize the building envelope and hand the keys over. But Tom or anybody else, I don't know if you have any recommendations on window testing.
I do. I think as important as a final test is a periodic inspection of the installation of the windows, a field inspection, whether you're doing it yourself or with your builder or your architect, is to walk through that project, whether it's residential or commercial, to make sure that the sequences are being adhered to. There's nothing worse than getting to the end of a project and finding out that one of the crucial steps was skimped upon, and finding that your trim has to come off and your drywall because you have air infiltration or even worse, water infiltration. So we need to, I think, just have visual inspections of what's going on as the building process goes through. And then we go for our testing at the end, whether it's blower door testing, thermal imaging. Generally, it's blower door testing. And there's some great engineering firms out here that will help you with that.
I'm going to keep going, Aaron. Let's go ahead and interrupt me, but I'm just reading a few other questions here. Is there a recommended tape thickness? So as far as the thickness of the tape, I feel like they're pretty standard. And also, to be clear, for those people that are into window installations, the tape that I'm referring to is a adhesive tape that is applied to the exterior and then a tape applied to the interior. But those that might have done some research on European installs, there is also an expanding foam tape that is used. We didn't really talk about that today. That is an option. And basically that's a tape that gets put in, as the window is not in the rough opening, you put this tape that goes around the perimeter of the window. And the basic premise is that when you put it and then install the window into the rough opening, that foam tape expands and fills that cavity. And what that does is it gets you away from using a spray foam. So it is more of a controlled product that you could use. We can talk more about that later. Definitely reach out to us if you have questions about that. And we could supply that with a product as well. But as far as tape thickness, again, Siga or Proclima or whoever the product is, the tape that you're putting on for your watertight seal interior and exterior, they have different widths of product. You definitely want to do some research. There's some that have really nice peel strips, rather than having one piece that peels off the back and you stick that on and you're trying to only put it on the window and partially here. They have some that has a small strip to remove, allows you to put that on the window, and then you're able to put the unit in with the tape partially on. And then once it's in the rough opening, you're able to peel the rest of that off, stick that onto the building. Little things like that are really crucial for your tape application. So that's where we want to get the tape guys involved, and we really want to talk about and do a mock-up and talk about your installation and your tape adhesion and so on. I'm looking at the Q&A portion on the Zoom app here, and I see, could you discuss lead times from shop drawings, manufacturing, shipping? What issues are you seeing in the supply chain that we might anticipate in scheduling our projects? We already talked about the basic lead time, but it's actually a great question. My answer is you can never start shop drawings too early. It's so much more relaxing when you can start, you're not up against the clock. There's always the back and forth between architects about making sure the shop drawings are dialed in properly, the specs are right. These things can, on some projects, they can be expensive. You want to make sure everything is dialed in perfectly. And no matter what the cost is, you want to make sure that everything is perfect. And knock on wood, I've never had a product show up the incorrect size, because we take so much time in our shop drawings, before they get there. Shop drawings, I would say, I usually tell people you want to give 4 weeks. If you can do more, great. Sometimes you have less, but that's approximate. And then the manufacturing and shipping is, as we talked about. How do the lead times for the European windows compare to domestic? I focus personally on the European products for Grand Banks. So I don't know, but from what I'm hearing.
I'd like to take that from there, if I could, Nate.
Go ahead.
We, at Grand Banks, we also distribute, US made products, and you all know them, but some of the lead times in those have gone out to 26 weeks. Right now, that we're looking at about 18 weeks. Those are for average double hung encasement windows that typically would be 6 or 8 weeks. So we find that the consistency with the European windows might even be ahead of what we're seeing here in the United States. There are just many more manufacturers or fabricators that we have relationships over there instead of just one source here. We have relationships with the big players here in the United States, but so again, I think what you were talking about, the 12 weeks, it's been pretty consistent. You and I know we were ordering things back in the fall, and we're looking at about 12, 14 weeks by the time it was finally on site. So
exactly. We're hoping things will catch up after the holiday, and we'll start seeing some better lead times here this spring.
I see a question on there from Ken, and Ken has been on a lot of these presentations, and I just like to address his question about backer rod and sealant. And it's used. It's been an industry standard for years, even in non-passive house, installations. My experience is that there's better thermal barriers using the tapes and some sort of insulation in the cavity itself. There've been all kinds of studies about it. Consultants, I tend to stay with the philosophy of exterior tapes, interior tapes, and again, like you said earlier, Nate, getting away from the foam insulation and using natural materials, i.e. rock wool or mineral wool, and some more environmentally friendly products.
Yep, agreed. One of the questions I'm seeing is there added money for the European windows that require higher performance windows where wind rating is required, i.e. building on the ocean or high impact areas where hurricanes and tornadoes are prevalent? The European products do have a pretty good performance rating already as a standard. When you're in a high wind situation, and we're talking about a couple projects right now, typically it's more at the mullions where you're using a 2-wide or a 3-wide or something like that. On a basic single window, if you get into hurricane rated products, what I've seen is, how are you attaching that glass to the sash? Are there adhesives that you're using to attach that? Versus a standard window, you're kind of just setting the glass into that sash, and then the stops are applied. And then you're looking at different attachments of the frame to the building, maybe more clips, maybe different things like that. But those are just different methods, I would say. So I don't think there's a huge uptick in cost for a single window. Again, for multiple mulled windows in a high wind area, we are looking at just adding reinforcements at the factory on those mullions. So typically it's vertical, but you could go vertical and horizontal, and you're just adding, a depth or a reinforcement at that mullion. Typically, cost wise, I think it's within people's expectations of what you would spend in a situation like that.
And if it called for, we can have testing done to make sure that the window meets that criteria. Okay, anybody else?
Those are all the questions I'm seeing here, folks.
Okay.
Thank you very much for today's presentation. This was excellent. We have some good questions as well, some good answers to them. I see you guys are posting your emails here in the chat room. Thank you for that. So everyone's still on. You can see folks' emails there in the chat and reach out with additional questions, of course, afterwards. But thank you to Tom. Thank you to Nate. Thank you to Magda. Thank you to Sam behind the scenes for setting this up. We really appreciate you guys doing this here today.
Thank you, Aaron. Thanks for putting this together, and thank you.
Yeah, look forward to seeing you all in person and seeing your office up there on the North Shore. Until then, everyone stay safe out there, and we'll see you in the future.
Thank you much.